I mean, honestly, the word you use is disappointing. I mean, it's not what we expected. It's not what we envisioned, and I think you used the perfect word, disappointing.
Nico, what is your reaction to the league starting this investigation, and what do you know about that process at this point?
Um, I don't know much. I think it's a great question, but I really can't. I mean, there's not really much I can comment on an ongoing investigation. I think eventually there'll be a, a resolution, and then we'll be able to comment.
How did you guys come to, as Jason Kidd said it, that organizational decision?
Like I said, it's a great question. I would love to dive super deep into it with you guys, but it's an active investigation, so I can't comment on it. And again, eventually there's going to be a resolution, and then at that point we'll be able to dive into it.
We didn't get a chance to talk to Kyrie Sunday. Uh, what conversations have you had with him about his future as he goes into free agency, and where's your optimism that you guys will be able to accomplish your top priorities, even said in the future?
Yeah, we did exit interviews with all the players. We did Kyrie yesterday. Had a great conversation, and I think the things that he said along the way about how he feels here, how he feels appreciated, how he feels accepted and allowed to be himself. I think those are the things that he said kind of consistently, and that's what gives me the optimism that he wants to be here.
Do you think Kyrie is a Mavs player now that he was traded and they're offered him both new contracts?
Um, you know what? Like when you talk about like money and years, like I don't think that's fair to talk about that because that's going to be part of the negotiation when we're allowed to actually do it. But Kyrie's definitely somebody that we want here, and we're excited about the potential of him being here.
Nico, how do you think the record with the games that you guys had Kyrie and Luka together was in
Um, that's another great question. I think I don't. I think the two work together. I think Luca and Kai work together. I think I've said this several times to most of you. I think when you have that talented of a player and that talented of two players, I think they work together. Um, I really think it's the players around them. I think the players around them kind of knowing their role with having those two guys out on the floor at the same time. I think that's the thing that we need to work on.
What progress did you see Jaden Harden make this season?
Oh my goodness. Amazing. You know, 37th pick, started out in the G League to where he ended the season. Like, just amazing. Like, literally, month to month, you saw the guy progress. You know, at the beginning of the month, he learned to be a pro. The next month, he learned, he's able to see passes that he didn't see early on. The way he can score the ball, pretty much at all three levels. The way he just attacks. He's a special kid.
What type of improvements do you expect him to make this season?
I think he's going to continue to grow. He's a gym rat. I mean, literally, if you go month to month and watch his progression, like you can almost, see it like a bar graph. And I think he continues that path because he's going to be in the gym. That's just the type of kid he is.
Even though you didn't get the results you wanted after you made the trade for Kyrie, what is it specifically about him that you feel like he is best suited to be here for this franchise going forward?
Yeah, I think in the league you got to have talent, and I think him and Luca, I think their styles are different, and I think they can play off each other. But at the end of the day, if you don't have talent, you can only go so far.
Last week, Mark Cuban said he personally takes blame for the success of the team, saying that basketball changed in ways that you guys didn't foresee. What are those ways, and how do you adjust for that over the offseason?
I don't know. I think you have to ask Mark that. I'm not really sure what Mark meant by that, and for me to even like try to get into his head, I think I would be doing him a disservice.
What do you think about him saying he personally takes blame for that?
I think that's what leadership does. In leadership, you take responsibility. I mean, just like I'm out here in front of you guys to take responsibility for a year that wasn't what we projected. So I think that's part of leadership. You should take responsibility.
How would you assess the job that Jason Kidd did this year?
Um, Listen, Jason Kidd's our coach. Um, you know, if you look at what we did last year, nobody asked like, "Hey, is Jason Kidd the coach?" Because we went to the Western Conference Finals. So I think Jay Kidd is the same coach that brought us to the Western Conference Finals. But when you don't reach your goals, everybody has to be evaluated. I need to be evaluated. Jason Kidd, like we have to sit down and, hey, what could we have done better? And so that's the same thing that has to happen.
You think he improved as a coach this year?
It's tough to say that he improved as a coach or wasn't better, but our record doesn't show it. So what we need to figure out is what we can do better.
Nico, Mark said that he felt he could prove to Luca and earn his ability to stay here going forward. Then Luca seemed to squash that pretty directly a few days ago. How do you feel about the confidence level of having Luca here long term and years down the road? And do you feel like you all need to earn his ability to be with this franchise? How do you feel about that?
Well, I take his words for it. He says he wants to be here. He's under contract, so I don't go to sleep at night worried about is Luca going to be a Maverick because he is a Maverick and he's under contract. Obviously, if that changes, then we'll have to reevaluate it. But I think our job really to keep Luca happy, if you will, is surrounding him by the right players to help him win. And I think Luca's a talent that deserves that.
One of the glaring issues was the lack of interior defense. Will that be addressed this offseason?
Yeah, I think for us going into offseason, the two biggest things that we need to work on is defense, period, and then rebounding. So that's going to be addressed.
Does that concern you that you said defense and rebounding was the focus this offseason? That was the same words that you said last exit interview, defense and rebounding. Does it concern you at all that it's the same focus?
I got to see the tape from last year. I don't believe I said those exact words. Someone, yeah. Nah, it doesn't because I think we tried to address it, but sometimes when you think you're addressing it, but it just doesn't work out. Um, you know, again, if we, one of the things, if you look at the difference between last year and this year, um, we literally just didn't. I mean, statistically, we just didn't play good defense. But last year, we were much better. So that's why I don't think I would have said defense last year because we were I think a top 7 or top 10 team defensively. So that was actually good. Now we didn't block shots and we didn't rebound well. But in terms of defense, we were pretty good last year.
It was in regards to the interior defense.
Oh yeah, but I was just talking overall in general, like defense. I think this year it's not about big or small, just defense overall. Like we weren't very good this year, and so that's going to be a focus. We just have players that were committed to it. I think defense is not just one person. I think it's kind of it's a team thing. I think you start off. I mean, defense and rebounding for sure. I think that's important, but basketball IQ. When you have two guys at that level, you gotta have players that can think the game and not just play it because those guys are both high IQ players, and to have both of them at the same time, I think you need surrounding players that have high IQ.
When you look back on the season, when did you guys know you had roster issues regarding defensively? Was it early or was it mid-January when you started to see it?
You know, it's a good question. I don't know exactly when it was, but we weren't good early defensively. And, I think if you, sometime around December, it was clear that we weren't a very good defensive team. But we had a lot of the same players from last year, and we were much worse. I'm not going to tell you what we discussed. No, our conversations, like we talk a lot. Those conversations are going to remain private. But it wasn't just the exit interview. Like we consistently talk throughout the year. And his goal is the same as our goal. How can we be better? So we talked a lot about, hey, what do we need to be better? Because he's going to give his opinion as well, and so we want to hear that.
How can Luka be better?
I'm sure you got analytics and who knows what else, but how do you go about weighing when guys like Josh Green and Hardy are ready and able to take on whatever bigger role is than what you had this year?
I'm sorry. How do I?
How do you get to that point where you say, okay, we've got these two guys that we know we can plug in at this age, and it's a place where you can feel comfortable.
Well, I think as we kind of close the books on this year and we look for next year, like we look at those guys as like, okay, we don't have to worry about this position or that position because those two guys kind of lock that down. So I think we look at it as a positive thing.
How can Luka be better?
How can Luca be better? I think Luca can. I mean, one, Luca's an amazing player. I think that's first and foremost. I think, probably play on both sides of the ball. And he's 24 years old. I think eventually, or not eventually, but he's going to continue to grow as a leader. I think he's done a good job. I saw the interview with you the other day, the question you asked, and he's been, I think he's shown leadership that way, and I think he'll continue to grow that way.
Uh, where are you in terms of interest in the Josh Green extension getting done this summer?
Just like any other free agent questions. I'm not gonna talk about that yet. Obviously we can't do it anyways. So when it's time to handle, we'll definitely worry about it then.
You said the season wasn't what you envisioned. Did you kind of re-envision what it could have been at the Kyrie trade, or was there enough concern about the defense then that you were worried about how far this team could go? Did you think that trade was something that could have sparked a run similar to last year?
Yeah, I didn't know the difference. If you look at last year's trade that we made with Porzingis, we were rolling before the trade, and so once we made the trade, we just continued to roll. We just had more depth. Um, we weren't playing very well pretty much all year. We've been consistently inconsistent. So I didn't know if this would be like a magic pill. I don't think I had like any visions of that, but I figured it couldn't be worse than what it was. And also I also looked at it as a long-term play, not a short-term play. Getting this trade wasn't for the 3 months.
And speaking of the longer term, you say you can rest well knowing Luka's under contract, but how worried are you? Does it keep you up at night on keeping Luka happy here?
I don't know what keeping Luca happy here means. I mean, if you win, then I'm assuming he's going to be happy. If we win and he's not happy, then I wouldn't know how to keep him happy. So I think the goal is to win. And if I'm assuming that works, it'll work for me.
You got Christian Wood, and it seemed like this time out he was spotty. How would you assess how he did with this team this season?
I thought Christian Wood was efficient. I think that he made the most of the time that he played. Offensively, he's amazing, and I think the minutes that he had, is a really efficient scorer.
How did the absences over, dating back to last summer, Jalen Brunson, Boban, and then in the Kyrie trade during Spencer Dinwiddie, how did those absences affect and change this team this season?
You asked a lot. No, I'm not even trying to be funny, but you went from Boban to Finney Smith and everybody in between. Like, really, what do you want me to answer?
Where it is, I'd be curious how it affected the locker room and this team's culture, which was something that you guys were proud of last season.
I think we have a lot of high character guys in the locker room. I think when you lose guys that have been around for a long time, that's obviously going to affect that. But we had high character guys in the locker room this year, and I think we'll continue to have high character guys.
Do you feel like it was as much of a strength as it was last season?
Um, you know, maybe it wasn't as much of a strength, but I don't think it was a negative.
You mentioned that Luka can ascend to a bigger leadership role, but in the here and now, who are the leaders in the locker room right now? Who are those guys that the younger players can turn to?
Well, one, Luca for sure. I mean, he is a leader. I'm just saying there's levels of leadership. One of the things I always talk about myself is that, people come to me and ask me like, "Hey, you've been a leader of massive amounts of people and teams. What do you do as a leader? What's your thing?" And I always say, well, my leadership style is under construction because I'm always getting better. I might, you and I might have a conversation and you tell me how you lead your team, and something might be like, "Oh, wow, that's interesting. I'm going to use that." And that's what I mean by under construction. So my point in Luca is a leader, but as he gets older, he's always going to get better because he's going to learn more. He's going to hear things that, "Oh, I didn't think about that." So definitely Luca's a leader.
No, I didn't mean it so much as is he a leader enough, but who's galvanizing the locker rooms? I mean, because there has been turnover, and there have been guys who've been here for a long time that were part of that culture. So, kind of moving forward, who are those leaders, maybe in addition to Luka, that can kind of form a nucleus?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the nucleus is still here. Maxi's still here. Dwight's still here. Well, he's a free agent. So you just want me to talk about the guys who are under contract, or because my point is, if you look at last year, a lot of the guys are still here. Dwight, Maxi, Josh, Reggie. So we have a nucleus of guys that kind of form a leadership group, if you will. And then you bring in JaVale, who's won 3 championships, and have him bring some leadership qualities. So yeah, leadership isn't an issue.
Nico, I know the draft is over a month away. A lot of things could happen between now and then, but what type of player you guys are looking for in the draft?
Um, well, the draft in general, it's going I think it'll be tough to evaluate right now because you don't know who's going to stay in and who's going to put their name in terms of what type of player we're going to look for. Just like last year, if we get an opportunity, we're going to get the best available player.
How aggressive will you be banging the pick and trade talks?
I haven't even thought about that.
That's not true. You can come up with a better way of putting
No, I think once we get through all the stuff with the NBA, after I think they're gonna have I think the draft lottery might be May 15th. Then after that, then I think that's a fair question.
You guys played a lot of close games after you had Kyrie. I think like 16 of them were decided by 6 or less. Maybe yours may have been more. Do you see that that margin as a positive, like, hey, we're pretty close? Or are those margins just doors were open, if you're not close, those outcomes didn't occur?
No, I think you nailed it. I think we were close, but not close enough. Obviously, we're sitting here now.
Looking back a year from now, what would you have done differently, or would you have just hoped for different results?
A year from now.
No, looking back a year ago, what would you have done differently?
That's part of what I got to do this summer is kind of look in the mirror and see what I could have done better.
Back to Christian Wood for a second. I assume when you make a trade like that, everybody, the leadership of the organization is all on the same page, right? So you indicated you did a good, he was efficient in the minutes he got. So how come when he came in, you guys knew what you were getting? Why didn't he get more minutes?
I mean, that's really more of a coaching question than me. I don't dole out minutes, but just because you're an efficient scorer, there's more to the game than just that. So I think it's important to note that.
You alluded to the defenses that you guys have maybe coming in a little bit more strongly. After Dennis Smith's departure, you obviously felt like the defensive drop off. How much of an emphasis is it going to be to find someone this offseason that can kind of fill that role? And do you feel like bringing in a guy or two like that is going to get this team back to a conference finals or even a championship contender?
Yeah, great question. One, I love Finney. I mean, beautiful spirit, amazing player. But we weren't good defensively when we had him this year. Like we just weren't. So losing him obviously didn't make us better, but we weren't good defensively with him.
Nico, as it relates to player development, like last year, Josh
Oh yeah. So Josh definitely completely developed, and our staff deserves a lot of credit for his development. And I know the guy he works with in the summer, he's great, but our staff definitely deserves a lot of credit for that. Just as well as Jaden's developed, and he's going to play summer league. I think he might have mentioned it in his exit interview.
What's a reasonable goal for Jaden next year in terms of role?
An everyday player. I think that's reasonable. A rotation player.
What's the job of a GM in the NBA these days when it's a constant arms race in the West?
To get as many arms as you can. No, honestly, I think it's to try to put the best team together to give the coaches and the players a chance to win.
Nico, what would you tell fans who are frustrated about this season and instill some confidence in them that this thing is actually going to be better than they feel it has to be before? You guys know what you're doing, basically.
Yeah. First, I mean, to fans that are frustrated, they should be frustrated. Like I'm frustrated. I don't, this year is not acceptable, and so I feel this. I mean, nobody can be harder on myself than I am. I take my job serious, and wins and losses, and not reaching our goals, and so I feel for them. And the only confidence I can give them is that we're going to evaluate everything, and we're not going to be in this position again. And I've said this, several times. Like when you don't reach your goals, like everybody needs to be evaluated, myself included. So I don't put myself above being evaluated when you don't reach your goals.
What was your second year like as GM, especially coming from outside the NBA? What was your comfort level and just what have you learned?
My comfort level was better. Obviously, I kind of knew what to expect. The results were worse, so that's not as good. So maybe my third year out, maybe my comfort level will be worse, but the results will be better. I'll take that.
What's something you wish you knew the first day coming into the game now?
Something. Good question. Probably how much the fans and everybody kind of wins and losses. Like really, everybody's up on a win and they're down on a loss. There's,
Do you believe that this team still believes in Jason's kid and that, if they rally behind him, that he can be successful?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think although the success wasn't there, I think if you watch the way the players played, they didn't. There was no quit on the team. Nobody gave up.
Do you think the record that you guys had this year was kind of just shadowing over how Jason was really doing and just kind of got the mind of the wins and losses?
Yeah, I mean, but when you don't, again, I've said this, when you don't reach your goals, like everybody has to take a step back and like really like do soul searching and could Jason have done stuff better? Like I hope so. Could I have done stuff better? Absolutely. So, when you don't reach your goals, those are the type of conversations you have to have.